All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So you guys continue to eat and bookmark your conversations, and we'll get back to that. Thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate y'all being a part of this program and event today. We're excited to feature another amazing entrepreneur from Cherokee County. My name is Jonathan Chambers, for those who don't know, and I get the privilege of working with the Cherokee Office of Economic Development. And we have the honor of doing programs and events like this inside of this exciting space. So I want to do kind of a quick 5 to 6 minute run through of what you're about to experience, of our vision from our office, as well as what space you're in, and then welcome and introduce John Blend of Goshen Valley. So I'm excited. So I get to work with a really amazing team who does an insane amount of work, really. I mean, ever since the beginning, I've been with the team for almost 3 years. And what this team gets accomplished is impressive. And so teamwork is a big value for our entire group. And so you'll see a lot of these people here: Misty, Keith Tippins, Ellie, Shauna, Molly, and Christine. Give them a thank you at some point and congratulate them for being a part of this. So it means a lot. And so a big part of what we are about as an office is the story behind Cherokee by Choice. And this is really a campaign that turned into really almost a brand statement for us over the last year. If you might have seen the hashtag or the logo or the slogan, that we're calling all of our friends and businesses and individuals in Cherokee County to tell us their Cherokee by Choice story. Why do you choose to live here? Why did you make Cherokee County your choice to live, to work, and to play? We want to hear that story on social media, or send an email to our office, or post a video online. We would love to hear your Cherokee by Choice story. If you do that, make sure to use the hashtag so that we can capture those and reshare. That would mean a lot to us. And then among a lot of the stuff that we do as an office and a team, from product development to sites and buildings, to film, entrepreneurship, talent, workforce development, it all is it's all backing up the story Cherokee by Choice. And the entrepreneurial side of what we do started about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, with a strategic plan where we decided, we looked at the landscape of Cherokee County, and we wanted there to be a support system for startups. We wanted there to be a community they could belong to, and programs they could learn from, and people they could get connected to help them have resources for what they need. Well, that program is called Fresh Start Cherokee, and it's our parent program of entrepreneurship, and it includes events and programs like the one you're at now, the Lunch Circuit. This was our very first pilot program 2 years ago, where we said we want to have an entrepreneur sit down with us and tell us their full story. We want to know where they've been, what have they learned, and how has it been hard, and what have they learned about themselves along the way. And so we developed the Lunch Circuit to get those stories out there in front of you guys to inspire you. Another program that we are doing, if I can get that in right here, that we do twice a month is called 1 Million Cups. This is from the Kauffman Foundation in Kansas City. They started it about 6 years ago. There's 200 chapters across the country. We're the 10th one in Georgia. So it's exciting to be a part of literally a community or a nation of people that gather every single week to hear from a new company, a new entrepreneur who's looking to solve their challenges. And what they do is they present their company in about 10 minutes to a room like this, and they crowdsource feedback from the community. Fascinating concept, and it's been a cool ride for a year. We do that in this space the first Wednesdays, and then we hit the road third Wednesdays to speak across Cherokee County, and it always involves free coffee, so we would invite you guys to join us for that. And then another program we've done for about a year and a half now is called the Creative Problem Solvers. It's a meetup that meets here twice a month, first and third Tuesdays. We get together early in the morning, business owners and entrepreneurs, and we talk about what keeps us up at night. What are we struggling with? It's leadership development, but it's also business development. So we talk about challenges that we have. It's a very vulnerable group. There's a couple people here this morning that go to that. Michael Carroll, Ben Carter. So if you want to find out what it's like, you can ask them. But it's just really a brain trust of entrepreneurs and innovators that get together as a community. And then, of course, the space you're in now. I know several of you this is your first time here, and so we welcome you to the circuit. This is an exciting space and a collaboration that's been almost 10 years in the making. So the circuit is Cherokee County's first co-work space. It's a student center for chat tech students. It's a co-working space for entrepreneurs and innovators. The public can come in here and have a meeting. And now, thanks to Alma Coffee and our partnership with them, we have a coffee shop. Woo! Woo! Right? we couldn't do the circuit without our collaborative partnership with Chattanooga Tech and the Woodstock Office of Economic Development, and of course our team, Cherokee Office of Economic Development, came together a couple of years ago for this vision, and what you see became a part of that, and thanks to y'all's support, it continues to go. These are some faces of the people that in our community, either alumni who worked here and they graduated out, or people who are currently in our space working at a desk or an office. So we have workspaces, we have programs and events that we can offer our community, and it's a great way for a startup to get started or to find resources that they need. And of course, a shout out one more time to Alma Coffee for being here, for being a part of the space. This is only their 3rd day in operation, so please go support them. Michael Caldwell's been waiting for this for like 20 years. Thank you.
I can't believe it's already May of 17.
Oh man, I don't know how to respond to that. Also special thanks to our partner over at Woodstock and their In Woodstock brand that brings together businesses and individuals from around the community into this one gathering of people that are all about building the Woodstock community. And then, so just real quick, just to reiterate for those who are new, there's really 3 reasons why we designed this program from the beginning. One is we are passionate about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurs build the economy, right? They're the backbone of our American economy. Small business owners, people who are innovating and solving problems. We are passionate about those people. We're also moved by stories. Stories affect us. They relate to us on a level that we can't compare to other interactions. And so something happens when you hear a story, it changes you. But more importantly, we like to experience stories in community. And so that's why you guys are in a physical space together, so that you can be across the table from other people and hear these stories together. All right. One final thing before I introduce John Glenn. This is something we've been trying for a couple months, so if everybody has a phone, pull it out now, pull up your browser, your favorite browser, and pull up the website slido.com. And what this is a live interactive app that allows you to send in questions with your name or anonymously during the event while John is telling a story. That way, if you're an introvert like my wife is, who's scared of crowds, you can send in a question. Let me tell you, if you're one of those people that likes to send in crazy questions, it allows people like you to have fun. So, Michael Caldwell, we respect some interesting stuff from you. But no, it allows you to ask questions, and then what I'll do at the end, we'll have about 15 minutes of Q&A with John, and I'll pull from those as well, and then also open the floor up to you guys to ask questions. So it's an easy way to do that. You'll use the hashtag lunch circuit if you haven't already seen that, and you'll submit as many questions as you want, and then you can upvote the questions that you like the best. All right, before John comes up, I want to just say a couple things about him. So. John W. Blend III, please say your full name, has been in and out of the business world for decades. He's been in and out of the software industry for 30 years with experience there. He had a vision for Goshen Valley and the foundation that he's built there with his family and team for over 20 years ago. And there's a lot I don't know about his story, and I know there's a lot you guys don't know. And so he's going to get into some of his story as far as why he started it and where the vision came from. But I also want him to talk a little bit about what he's learned along the way in his entrepreneurial ventures. He started companies, he became an investor early on and invested in companies with a VC firm. So he's had a wide variety of backgrounds. But I think what's most interesting and why a lot of you are here today is because of Goshen Valley and the impact that they've had on the community. So John, we'll kick it off. Would you guys welcome John Glenn? All right, John, before we jump into a couple of questions, I like to do a little lightning round. Okay. Because it's fun and awkward, and that's what I like to do. So far away. So these are designed to be shoot from the hip. So you just gut response, don't second guess. You ready? All right.
Where's the video cameras? Turn them off. Oh my heavens, there it is.
All right. So sum up your personality for us in one word,
Intense.
Intense? Wow. Great. What's the only way to drink coffee?
Hot.
Hot.
Go with black.
Sorry, Spencer. How do you start your day?
Of late, it's a 15-minute meditation on a piece of software called Calm. C-A-L-M. I recommend it. It's an interesting way to start off.
Did you go through the app on your phone? Is that what you're doing?
That's where I found you.
50 minutes.
No, 15 minutes.
15 minutes.
And I
okay.
use it at night. It's trying to replace Ambien with this really low talker. And it's semi-working. So there you go.
This interview is brought to you by Calm. The best book that you've ever read?
It's not profound. I'm kind of a John Grisham guy, so there's a string of books that I like. So when they come out, I buy them. Not the end. The last one's haven't as good as the first one, but he's still a great writer.
Yeah, he is good. Your favorite type of music?
Classic vinyl on Sirius.
Okay, very good. We should have that playing. Sorry. What do you like to do for fun? What do you like to do for fun?
Watch TV.
Like the news or Netflix or what's your
It's a delicate topic.
Okay.
My wife and I don't watch the same shows. So take it from there.
Well,
We've been married 42 years. We've just always, it's a cute story, we've always voted oppositely, basically. And this year we made a pact that we would not vote for the governor and we would save us, because we didn't know what a poll was. We just moved here. So we decided both of us would not vote, so we wouldn't, just block each other out. So at 6:30, I'm watching TV, and she comes in with an "I voted" button on, and the polls had closed. And she revealed to me that after 42 years of marriage, she went and voted without me. So there was one net minus on my party, which we're not going to get into discussing which party is mine and Connie's. But long answer. Go ahead.
wow. All right. That's fascinating. Just for the record, I took my political questions off the sheet, but you went there, so I'm glad.
Good.
Favorite sport and team?
It would have to be the Braves, and I like to watch baseball in the summer. It's on almost every night, so it's a good value.
All right, that makes me feel really good about myself because I'm not a football guy. I take a lot of heat for that. So, do you prefer iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Okay. What's the most dangerous thing that you've ever done?
I lived in the jungle in Oaxaca for a month. No electricity, no nothing, and learned Spanish and Indian. So I spent some time off the grid. That was interesting, memorable, relevant to today.
How long ago was that?
I was 20.
You were 20. I don't know how to follow that one up. That's just too fascinating. Well, maybe that answers the last one. The coolest country you've ever visited?
I've been to 64 countries. I got my passports out the other day because we were moving. That was an interesting story. Can I tell it? Sure. I finally gathered all of my memorabilia into one box, and we were moving after 40 years of living in Chastain in Atlanta out to Woodstock. So I put it all together and lost it. Lost the box of my life. And I now have a grandson, thanks to Zach. So I have envisioned these times where I would sit with him and show him his grandfather's and great-grandfather's report cards. Gone. And I had a whole biblical understanding of that. It was for me to get humility, not to think about how cool I used to be, and to start to worry about what I'm doing next and who's hurting and not think about how cool I have it. So I got this whole thing done and I finally started to stop the grieving. And my wife goes away every summer for 2 weeks with the grandchildren and takes them to different state capitals. They've now been to 30 at the end of this trip. And just prior to leaving, she and her girlfriend came because we were redoing the basement. And she found the box. Found the box. So I've been giving gifts to everyone who can see. If anyone needs anything today, reach me. I have this huge gratitude for being able now, as I, become, I'm not closer to 80 than 70, but it's, it's out there. The idea that I'll be able to look and say, I wonder what that was. Part of those were a bunch of pictures taken when I was a young man and lived in Mexico on the coast of Oaxaca. To learn to speak another language, which if you have advice to give your children, learn, do an immersion somewhere, and be able to, while you're still young enough, to implant another culture. And in business, it's saved me millions of dollars to be able to get on a plane and go to Buenos Aires and talk to the CEO of the ESEBA, the electrical utility in Buenos Aires, and speak in his language and say, I need you to sign this. In perfect Spanish. And he would sign it, and I would come back and we would make the quarter. That's also one of the intense things that are here.
Maybe you can teach a master class.
Excuse me?
Maybe you can teach a master class on Spanish.
Claro. Right. Oh, it's just with we're redoing the basement, so when my wife goes away, I give her a surprise every year of what she comes back to. So last year she came back to my golf cart. She's like thinking, where's my part of that? So I go around Woodstock now on my golf cart. Didn't take it here today, but normally would have. So she's coming back to find the downstairs redone, the glass pine barn doors, and the baby grand. She does not know about it. She's in Manhattan with her grandchildren. Can't wait to see. But anyway, all the guys that were working on it was in Spanish or Mexican, so I was able to practice. So if you need any translations today, ask.
It's fantastic. Thank you. Let's dig into a little bit about your background, your family, where you're from, and then how you ended up here.
New York, Brooklyn to Long Island to a small college in Allentown, Pennsylvania, to either be a minister or something, and then went away to Mexico, lived down there, learned the culture and all that. Lived in Mexico City and went to the National University there for a while. Came back and my grade point at Muhlenberg was a 1.9. And in sociology and social sciences, it was a 2.0. You needed a 2.0 in your major, you needed a level 1.8 to get out. And I had a college deferment from Vietnam. So I had been bounced out of Muhlenberg. So I was able to, get through it and was able to take a job interview with IBM, which was, they did not want to allow me to have. They said, your grade point's too low, you've been partying for 4 years, we're not going to promote you, if you will. This was the career office. Like, we can get you a job there, but we're not going to waste one of our IBM interviews with you. So I said, waste it, please, let me try. So I walked in and sat down, and the guy looked at my resume. And he started speaking Spanish. Bill Campbell. He says, you've just been living in Mexico and you've been living in Oaxaca. And I said, yes. And then he moved into Spanish, and it turned out he'd been the Mexico City branch manager for IBM for 3 years. Totally fluent in Spanish, like me. And he offered me the job. That interview said, you're hired. So when we get to talk about what that means down there, it's the providential nature of my life, where things, when you get in the rearview mirror, you start to connect the dots and see that, that I've had an awful lot of good fortune in order to have the 1.8 grade point as he heads into IBM. So, which is what my career in technology began.
So I like that story because I wanted to ask you to talk about, Muhlenberg College, which is in Pennsylvania. You mentioned going there. You got a BA in social sciences. Looking back at your career, how do you feel like that major and experience in college prepared you, and how did you use that for your career?
I haven't been in school in a while, but in the days I was in school, you had blue books that you wrote your essays in. And I needed to be in courses that were essay-centric. Not calculus, not physics, not, defining entropy, and not good at that. I was good at telling stories. And I told stories in sociology. I experienced stuff. I went into where the New York City gay movement was just happening. I went in and interviewed the president of the Mckesson Society, which is a large, well-known gay national program. So back in 1968, I'm interviewing on some topics that at the time were outrageously controversial, which are now, mainstream, and I'm happy for it. But social sciences gives you that opportunity. It also gives you a breather. It gives you 4 years to try to figure stuff out. So you're not trying to learn how to use a slide rule, you're trying to learn how to draw. So I like that. And it liked me.
Yeah, that's good. Well, so talk about how you would define what an entrepreneur is, because as we discover, entrepreneurs in this space and the programs that we've done here across the county, you start to learn that everybody defines it differently. For some people, it's one thing. For some people, it's a bigger thing. So how would you define an entrepreneur, and then how did you end up becoming one?
I have a story about that. I used to work with Carlyle Group, which is a big private equity firm in Washington, and they asked me to come out, and one of the partners was a big shot at Stanford, and he asked me to go out and speak at their business school about private equity in highly managed markets, pretty dry topic. And I'm talking to the kids about what I know, and I'm watching them, and they're not kind of tuned in. And at the end of it, I said to the partner, I said, how did I do? He said, okay. He said, 2 years ago, Larry Page was in this class. So Larry Page is the founder of Google, right? So, entrepreneur is an interesting word. If you're in a Harvard dorm and you're inventing Facebook, or you're me just slugging it out in the application software world, vastly different. And I wasn't an entrepreneur per se. The arc of, and I suggest this arc for some of you who is thinking about how do you arc yourself right now, or where am I in my arc? I think what you need to do to be a successful entrepreneur, and I'd rather say a successful investor, is that you need to spend a fairly long time learning something, to become a subject matter in something, to be able to be spontaneous as opposed to scripted, to have those attributes that when you're with something, they feel depth, and all of a sudden you're trying to track what they're saying, and you're less interested in talking about what you're there to say, and all of a sudden you become a muse as opposed to a salesperson, then all of a sudden you're always talking to them. So you have to take time to learn something in order to have that opportunity. And I've always believed, so I spent 12 years in learning. I went to work for IBM, and I spent 12 years there. It's a long time these days. People spend 12 minutes in places now. So I spent 12 years learning. So I learned how to program, I learned Fortran, I learned COBOL, and I did badly at it, and I learned how to sell computers and did well at that. But I think to have the gravitas to be viewed as someone you can trust, whether you're a banker, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're an accountant, you better know what you're talking about. Glib doesn't go far, especially with other people's money. So, first part of the art, learn. So if you're in a circumstance where you're really gathering yourself, and feeling a sense of corpus out of what you know about what you're doing, and whether you're doing that because it's your profession or you do it because it's something you like, I suggest you do that. So first thing you want to do is learn something. The second thing I recommend is a long period of time of executing. And for me, that was 30 years of executing. So, if you don't count it, it doesn't count. I know that in my career I had 144 quarters that I made my numbers. Literally, just, a lot of things happen, but if you need to be in Saudi Arabia on Christmas, I'm in Riyadh, because that's where I have to be to make the rest happen. So you have to execute. And during that period of execution, you get an opportunity to do things like cheat. So you can cheat during that time and say, hey, I had 144 quarters and 3 of them I made it up. No. You don't want to do that. You don't want to cheat. You don't want to marginally describe what you did as accomplishment when in fact you didn't. I just wish you to work harder and stay more committed. So you learn, then you execute. And now you've got a real quandary in front of you. I know what I'm talking about, and I know how to do it. So what should you do? From my perspective, it wasn't to start another business, it was to invest in businesses. So I spent 20 years investing. And when I met people, I would try to know what I'm talking about, and I would try to see if they were spontaneous or scripted. Then we'd figure out how good their business model was and all that other stuff. But I'd offer you that as the journey. Learn it, do it, invest in it. Now the entrepreneur can invent it. I have no problems with it. So let's talk about that for just a minute on the entrepreneurial side. I would suggest that if that's where you're headed with what you want to do, be your own boss. The following is what I would suggest quickly, and that is you want to have a board. You don't want to do this alone with your wife's father's money, all right? You want to have a board so that you are held accountable for what you're doing. Not because they may be subject matters, but they may be character matters, or they may be spiritual matters, or they may be this or that. So if you're thinking about doing something, and this includes opening a landscaping company, I want to talk to you about who are the people who believe in you, who would endorse what you're trying to do by way of associating with you. And I'll be quite judgmental about that. Who did you pick? All relatives, or somebody who had money and he sleeps through the meetings, or, we'll get to how you've done with that. So I would suggest you have a board. Second thing I'd suggest is you have a lawyer. You want to have a lawyer in life. And it's to be a colleague. So my daughter has a private criminal practice, and I don't mean one of those lawyers. I don't need to do what she does every day. But you want to have a corporate lawyer who knows you and you can go see and doesn't charge you a lot and is rooting for you. If you don't have one, issues are happening that might not be good for you. Intellectual property issues, employee issues, HR issues, all kinds of stuff can happen. If you as the CEO or the founder, or you've got your mortgage on your house bet on this venture and you have no plan B and your family doesn't know, you want to have a lawyer. You want to have a banker. The great thing about Cherokee County, from my perspective, is they're community banks still. They're actually banks that will get to know what you're trying to do, try to invest in. You may have to put your car in your house and your life insurance and a few other things on the table, but they will give you the cash you need in order to operate and start and grow. We used South State, but before that we used Crescent, and they went out of business, and we used Renaissance. But we've always, when on a quarterly basis, the first person to get your numbers is who? Not your chairman of the board, not who is it? Your banker. Everything's okay this quarter. Okay, thanks. You don't want them to find out or her to ask, and all of a sudden you're trying to explain why your receivables are through the roof, nobody's paying you, customer sat states, the product doesn't work, but otherwise we're fine. So you want to have an accountant, you want to have a lawyer, you want to have a banker, you want to have a good accountant, you want to have an accountant who will shoot you straight, who will do cash flows with you and say, what are you thinking of? You know? So those three I would equip myself with, and I would have a board. And then if you had those circumstances going, you'll have a much different discussion with a possible investor. You'll think it's remarkable that you're already out there doing things that he or she would want you to do in order to protect their investment.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you for walking through that. I'm going to walk now into entrepreneur, investor, John Bland, and now into Goshen Valley. I've got a few pictures behind us. But I'll leave that up, John, for a second. If you could just tell us the story of where did it come from? I know it was about 20 plus years ago. How did you land at this, and then why? Why does this matter?
It starts very early, and it starts with vocation. So if you go back 520 years, you can read extensively what Martin Luther has written about vocation. And vocation is the marriage of what you do for a living with God. And that everything you do, you could basically make that a seamless experience and take on all the character of faith along with all the impetus of what you do every day. So early on, that resonated with me. Early on, I thought, I have enough extra cycles that what I'm doing could be good, but what I was also doing was fast pitch, nasty, investing, growing, all kinds of things that weren't pretty. But there's also this side of it, which is the greater good. And if you're not recognizing at the outset, I think you're missing both an opportunity and you're also missing a prerequisite for success. So I said it would start that with Lutheran College and all that stuff. Then it goes back to Mexico. So who's my age? No ladies have to answer that. No doubt, no guys. I can't find anybody my age. When I was a young man, there was a drug called thalidomide. And thalidomide was a birth control drug. And the outcome was that babies were born many times more little girls and little boys with no arms. That was the outcome. So I was in Mexico working, and I was in a jewelry factory where I was working, associated with the jewelry factory. I'd go to college in the morning and work in the jewelry factory in the afternoon. And there were broken pieces of glass, and we would collect them. And once a month, we would go to a Catholic orphanage outside of Mexico City that was predominantly thalidomide girls. So you would arrive at an orphanage with a bunch of screaming, happy, running around little girls with no arms. Get that graphic. And they would learn to string jewelry with their toes. So I went there, and I went there 3 or 4 times, and would hang out with the little kids and watch them string jewelry. We would take the jewelry back. We would pay them some modest amount of money for that as part of the experience. I can't shake it. I can't shake it today. So I came back, and we started a school for, at the time it was in Reading, Pennsylvania, or Allentown, Pennsylvania. There was a lot of Puerto Rican folks who were working there in the mushroom factories, and they didn't speak English, so we started teaching little kids English as a bounce off of this thalidomide, holy moly, the world's not fair thing that happened to me as a young person. So since then, it's always been there. It's been there. So when I started to make money and had our first IPO, and I'm sitting here in Atlanta, and I took a drive and went to Jasper of all towns, sorry, Misty, and had a realtor take me and show me 40 acres in the Silicoa in the northwest corner of Cherokee. And I bought land from a moonshiner named Newt. And he'd never known a Yankee, ever known. And I was going to pay $1,000 cash that afternoon for that. And he thought he had been like drinking his product. He was like, and we did, and I did. And now we manage 300 acres, we own 170 acres. We bought up all the pieces from guys in jail, got the people all over to re-put together the Collins homestead, which in 1840, Zachary Taylor came with a bunch of nasty guys and ran all the Cherokee Indians out of Cherokee County and left behind the Collins homestead. And in 1840, A. Collins went to the courthouse and bought it in the land auction. And that house is still standing. It's in 1850. And the Yankee bought this thing 40 years ago, 1980, whatever that is, like 40 years. So I bought the land from the moonshiner. And we'd sit on the porch and folks would drive up and he'd say, "Sit here." And I'd have to like sit on the porch and he'd go inside and go up to the roof and pull down the moonshine and sell in the car and come back and, you know, smoke a cigar. I couldn't discuss it. I just have to observe it. I have pictures of that. So that's how it started. It started with one of my kids. And you'll all have your moments and your epiphanies, and you can either grab them or you can process them or you can do something with them.
So that obviously is the heartbeat for you, and then turns into this thing called Goshen. And so take us to that moment too, when it.
I went to church, a lot of church stuff in this. I went to church, Little Church of the Redeemer. It was a new member class. It was our first time there. Connie and I, was 1992, and we went in, and the head preacher was explaining about their capital campaign and the 7 things that they were going to do, and the 8 that they wouldn't be able to do, and the 8th was boys' home. So on the way out to a person I'd never met, I said, "I have a ranch up in Cherokee. We ought to talk." It was a farm at the time. They called it Goshen Farm. I said, "We ought to talk about that at some point." He said, "Great." So a day later, he calls back, the preacher. "Hi, Mr. Glenn, this is Bob Sims, Pastor Sims. I'd like to get together with you." So he did. Got together with me. And he brought some people to the meeting, like John Sherles, you know that name, he's in the Hall of Fame. So he became a main guy to me, and Zach. And Dorothy Beasley, and at the time she was the chief appellate court in the state of Georgia. And she's still my best friend, she's 84. And she became, in quotes, a board member. We didn't have a board then, because we didn't have anything. We were thinking about what we're going to do with this property. So this Lutheran church assembled for me their leadership and said, "Why don't you help John do this?" At which time they did. And Dorothy brought me up here one day to meet the juvenile court judge who had just taken the job, Jackson Harris. You may know that name. So we're in Jackson's basement office in the old courthouse, no windows. As Dorothy, who was the chief appellate court for the state, was there to hear appeals. She said, "I want to take you down and introduce you to Jackson. He's the new juvenile court judge." So we go downstairs. And we walk in and we sit down. And he says to his secretary, "See if you folks want a Coca-Cola," where I learned it was a 3-syllable expression, Coca-Cola. And I said, "Yeah, I'll have a Coca-Cola." And Dorothy said she'd have a Coca-Cola. And Renee, his secretary, brought a Coca-Cola in. And we were there to tell Jackson about the boys' home that we wanted to build, and would he, as the juvenile court judge, be supportive of this initiative we're going to do in Cherokee County. So we were like there selling, and he's bringing the Coca-Colas out. And his secretary brings it out, Renee. And she looks at me and says, "Mr. John, you're putting this boys' prison at Daddy's?" So his secretary lived on the property I had to buy in order to get this place licensed. Right in the middle of what we had bought was her father's place, sold to him by Newt. Remember Newt? So now I'm sitting in the basement saying, "Renee, you can't tell your dad about this." Well, 2 weeks later, David's on the phone. "What's this about the boys' prison?" I said, "What do you mean, David?" He said, "I've never locked my door or locked my house, and now you're going to..." I said, "David, don't worry, we're going to have very secure fencing." Very secure fencing. 2 months later, and he would never sell me his place. 2 months later, John David, Renee's father, Judge Jackson's secretary, still is. We gave her an award last year years later. I recognized her for talking her dad into doing what? Sold us the place. So we bought 20 acres from Renee's dad, which is right now where we have our mental health housing called the Sims Cottage. Who is Sims? He's the preacher. With the boys wearing John Sherholz's old clothes, who brings his clothes up every year because he gets a lot because he's wealthy. So this extraordinary synergy occurred of church, state, Goshen, moonshiners. So if you want to get in front of that bus, good luck. So basically that gets to the question of what was our plan, and I'll tell you it was Johnny Hunt who gave you, Johnny used to run First Baptist Woodstock, and he came out, Zach may or may not be there, Zach may still been involved, but he came out and looked around and said, "You know what you're doing?" I said, "I don't have a clue." He said, "Perfect." He said, "Get out of the way, son." He said, "Let this happen." He said, "You ain't get no FedExes from nobody. Let it happen." So the advice I got from Johnny Hunt was, get out of the way. And basically what I tried to be is a total type A out of the way, which can be a neuroses. So that's the connection of how
Type A out of the way.
Yes.
How's that working out for you?
it's working great. My son went to college in Mullins, which was known for its golf team. Okay, so there you go with that. And we still have a guy on the tour, this is his buddy. So Zach went to Mullins and he came back and he said, "Dad, I want to coach," and he went to work as a school teacher and coach at Holy Innocents where he went to school. And then one day he was watching the ranch and we were kind of get started. This is probably 12 years ago, and he said, "Dad, I'd like to come out and start." And he's done every job out there, house parent and everything else for a long time. Not for full-blown, married a woman, this made all the difference. And they have a great family unit. So Zach's taken over with this team I have here, who've been with me for a long time. A great team, a real need, a great reputation. So I'm in the wings.
That's awesome. So tell us a little bit about, I'm going to go to this final one here.
Go back.
Yeah, sure.
Go back one. So this is Zach and 5 of his buddies up at the ranch. Let's see that cross up there. It's tied to a telephone pole. And 12 years ago, I don't know how long ago, you were a senior in high school. 20 years ago? These kids went out into the woods and it was a Good Friday, and we carried the cross in. So we went out and cut down the tree. These 5 preppy type kids, spoiled kids, slogging in at 90 degrees out, carrying the wood that we then cut into the cross that we then hung up there. And that blew me away, still does. It's still standing. Go ahead, you were going to.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us briefly about this. What is it? And
This is Zach's vision for kind of our next stage as a fully integrated community ministry. And how do we in Northwest Cherokee? So we talked about how do we take that little school in Molesca and redo the gym, and that never happened. And we talked about how do we make families healthier. And we realized that after a lot of years, I always viewed the family as the problem, and if we could just get them away to the ranch, which is like a fancy prep school with Jesus, everything could come out right. And guess what? It has. We have 9 graduates this year from high school, more than any affinity group over there. Our GPA is higher than many. So a lot of good things have happened. But we need to embrace the family, not as the problem. Because what we should be happy about is not having the kid come into care versus coming into care. That's an epiphany we've had and are working through. This building is part of that. So Goshen has gone from being a private family foundation to being a public operating charity. So it went from a 509A1 to a 501C3. Took 5 years for the IRS to take me through a transition period from one to the other. January 1st of last year, Zach took that notice with Evan and went to all the large foundations in Atlanta, Woodruff, Campbell, Tull, Atlanta Community. Those are the bombers. And raised $700,000 with them. The county came in and brought a spectacular commitment to us. So this is about the family, but it also has a clinic. It also has a therapeutic component. It also has a place with classrooms and stuff. So hopefully it'll be an
What's the
important
timeline?
one. It'll open up, Zach believes, November 1st.
Really?
We had our groundbreaking about a month ago. And Ladder is doing the work, and Mark Robillard, who's a Canton guy, is doing the architectural work. We're in the middle of in-kind right now, so we're, going to corporations in the community and saying, do you want to pitch in? So we have friends doing that. Our Southeastern Restoration team is remarkable. They were always there for us. About 200 people on average every second Saturday come to the ranch. First Baptist Woodstock last week. Revolution. A couple of others of the well-known bigger churches. Evan and Josh lead that work. So it's pretty remarkable. So we have a combination of volunteers, we have money from the foundations, we have gifts from our long-term sponsors, corporations, and hopefully we'll have a place that's air-conditioned this summer, heated in the winter, and allow our kids to take a lot of value out of that, be able to teach more, have clinics, be able to have it be family friendly.
Yeah. Well, I've only been in the community 3 years, and it's obvious the impact that Goshen Valley, from your leadership and vision from the team, has made on this community. And because I've heard the name Goshen Valley since day one when I started here, before I even knew what it was. And so kudos to you guys for hard work and passion and perseverance. I want to ask one more brief question before we transition to everybody out here for Q&A. What do you feel, well, so when you look back at your career and then you look at where you are now, what do you feel are some of the biggest things? It could be one thing or two things that you learned about yourself through this journey.
There's no guarantees. So, no matter how pat something looking may be, what the hand is you think you can build, if it looks good, be very cautious. If it looks bad, say, wow, this could be great. There's the delta between where it is and what it could be. So challenge then becomes a positive versus the thing that looks like we're almost home. You're almost never almost home. It's not if you're especially trying to create wealth. If you're trying to find yourself in a circumstance where other people give you their money to manage. I started with a firm 20 years ago, Fund 1 of Insight Venture Partners, and I was their first, what they called venture partner, in that I only took ownership in those deals that I brought or was involved in. And they were all really quant-type brainiacs, all Wharton MBAs, engineers, stuff like that, in the investment firm. But they took me almost as like, the kind of the funny guy with the stories who really knew how to sell. But no raw genius in this guy. 5 years later, we had closed Fund 5. And 4 months ago, and then I left at the end of Fund 5. I retired. I had an office on 54th Street. I would be commuting up and down. It was not pretty. So 10 years ago, I left that. So I was in discussions with them because they still support Goshen in a serious way. I said, how are things going? They said, we just closed Fund 10. I thought remarkable. We started it with Fund 1, which was $50 million. It's not a lot of money these days. I said, what did the fund close at? They said $6.5 billion. Largest private equity fund ever opened and closed. buildings in the history. It started with small potatoes on 54th Street with 4 of us in a little office. So don't be dulled by the great hand you're dealt, and don't be daunted by the lousy hand you're dealt. Buckle up, stay true, think about that much of what you do is providential, then demonstrate that. I think you should not wait up and say, when I'm 80, I'm going to build that library. I'm not saying do it that way. But if you can live a life that includes considerations for everybody, and this is not good theology, don't take this with you. I believe you can become blessed. I believe you can become blessed if you believe that. That's tricky. You don't want to open your first employee dinner with that sermon. But I think you can find that there's an awful lot of linkage between character and outcome. And I tell you to invest in both. And then you can be a type A on the outcome side. And they'll tolerate all that silly stuff because you've got that other engine.
It's become a good storyteller. So I know there's obviously so much more we can get into. So you guys, about 10 minutes left or less. What questions do you have for John about anything, whether it's entrepreneurship, investing, Goshen Valley? Love to hear it. Turn it over to y'all.
Thoughts? Please.
What's been your proudest moment?
I suspect.
What's been your proudest moment with, I'm going to say Goshen, and your most embarrassing moment with Goshen? And then I would also ask you to, at the investing side of things, proudest and embarrassing. Thank you.
I think my proudest Goshen moment would be we had a circumstance a long time ago where Zach and I made a decision on something. And we made it after Johnny Hunt called me and said that the First Lady of Georgia wanted to have breakfast with us. And that I had to go. It wasn't like optional. Okay, I'd go. And I went to the governor's mansion, went in the basement. It was 8 o'clock. She didn't have a robe and her hair wasn't up, but it was home. And it was Mary Purdue, and she introduced me to the CEO of Family Christian Stores. And it changed our lives. Zach decided that he was going to go with a Family Christian Store retreat. We've done 25 of them now. In making that decision, the fellow who ran the ranch left. It was like it was not pretty, because not everybody thought it was a good idea to do. At the end of this, in the middle of the first week of the Family Christian Retreat, which the CEO had decided to come to, a guy with like 500 stores or something, big deal. He adopts one of our boys. He wakes me at 1 o'clock in the morning. We're sleeping on air mattresses. He says, I have to talk to you. I said, what's that? He said, I've got to adopt this child. What was his first name, Zach? Tyler. Got to adopt Tyler. Guess what he did? Adopted Tyler. Tyler was a state wrestling champ. Tyler went into service. Great story. We have other stories like that of CEOs in this county who have adopted kids from us, who now have gone to college, gone into service, stuff like that. So that's not the only time it happened. But kind of the proudest thing was to watch Zach. He joined the party that day, made some hard calls, and since then he's flourished, I believe, with the support of the team. So that was a big day for us, and a big day for the ranch, and stuff like that. Embarrassing, countless. There's countless embarrassing. And this isn't the place to chronicle all them, but
Offline.
I've only been a non-drinker for 2 years, so connect the dots. But for the last 2 years, I've just been perfect. That's good. Oh yeah, and business-wise, I was selling a company. So we decided that we couldn't do our own IPO. We were running out of cash, and we went out and beat our biggest competitor 5 times in a row. Okay, 5 big deals. We won them all, and I was at them all, and we won them all. And he called us and said, I've concluded I can't beat you. So he paid $350 million for the business that I'd started with a couple of other guys because he couldn't beat us. So as opposed to going to the market, it became liquid next week, following week kind of. It was a little trickier than that. But that was my proudest moment for all the people I worked so hard with who became liquid through an investment. Yes? Anybody else?
Any other questions? Got time for a couple more.
Alan,
Yes, sir.
how would you go about building a board for your business?
I started with Richard Kennedy. Richard Kennedy had a company called Kennedy Energy Systems, Kennedy Generating. He's a Christian, big time. And when I went to visit him, when I was just getting to know him, he had a Bible on the table and he would have staff meetings and they would pray their way into it and pray themselves out of it. And I would watch him talk to me about circumstances. He was involved in the circumstances of the employee associated with what the story I just told was. But he was a remarkable, and is today. So he's still on the board. His business died in 2007 when so many businesses died. He was not able to prevail through that recession. And he's now a professor at Kennesaw State and doing wonderfully. And he's on our board. And he regularly offers a biblical construct to the circumstance we face. So we're looking at this, talking about that, and he's taking us back 27 years and how it was dealt with then. Same problem, just a little technology. So I'd say find somebody, find a faith person if you can. I'd say find some subject matter at the highest level. So today we have on our board the state director, the former state director of DFAX. That's a good person to have on your board. They know everything. So, and they're helpful because they know what it's like to have 100 kids a year. She had 16,000. So we're not quite at the scale of the state, but she's right there at her side with what we face. Anything else?
Yeah.
So kind of can you talk a little bit about like when you're in your 20s and 30s and this sort of learn, execute part of your art, where did you see yourself when you were going to be like 50 and 60?
It's a great question because it was an epiphany moment. I was about to become the branch manager in Philadelphia for IBM, kind of the youngest they'd ever had. And it was like the pinnacle of my journey to be 30 years old and have that responsibility. And a man called me named Walter Huff, and actually called me through an intermediary who was a headhunter and said, would you consider leaving IBM to join this small startup? And I said no, and then I said yes, and then we met. And then he flew me to Atlanta alone. I was the only one on the plane. That got a lot of momentum. Pilot asked you, like a Coca-Cola. So I think at that time, what I learned was equity is fundamentally everything. Equity is more important than salary. Equity is owning what you're doing. Leverage. Saying what I do, certainly from subject matter, has to add to what I am. So my two industries in my whole life were utilities and healthcare. I know more about healthcare, more about utilities than anything else, but I know a lot about them. So I would invest in companies that did things for them. Because the Edison Institute, I was an officer in, and it's every CEO in the country. So when we had to do this IPO and we had to have an investment, and I golfed and slept overnight at Augusta with the CEO of Duke, which I had, and who's a buddy, who's now passed away. I said, I need two things. You need to buy this stuff, and then you need to buy the company. Hey, this is one golf game. I said, hey, yeah, but it's Augusta. It's the Masters. We're here alone in this house. He said, okay, I'll think about it. He did. So I think alignment is important. I think leveraging what you're doing. So if you're not creating ownership in what you're doing, if your interest is in creating wealth, you're in Pearl. It's not possible because things cost too much and they don't pay enough salary. In the meantime, if you're working at the YMCA, you get an A+ in Vocation. And in the end of the day, when you're 72, that's worth more than the other stuff. So it's an interesting path. And my point is always combine them. And my pastor would say to me, "Are you thinking of retiring?" I said, "No." He said, "Thank heavens. You know, the last thing we need is another retired guy." So now I'm a retired guy. Golf cart.
Well, I know that you may have some more questions, so if John has a couple minutes maybe afterwards, grab
That's
him.
great.
Thank you for giving us part of your story and spending time with us.
You have an amazing likeness to our lead mental therapist. For those of you who haven't seen Scott Davis in a while, are you kidding me? This is Scott. So you could today go out and start sessions with kids and wail away at it.
Okay.
And say, "What are you doing today?"
Right. Tell me how you feel about it.
So,
Yeah.
hi, Scott.
Maybe an entrepreneurial therapist. Would you guys give it up for John? We have a couple minutes if anybody wants to chat with you or grab a picture. Before you guys go, real quick, in lunch circuit tradition, I want to tell you about our next entrepreneurs that we're going to be featuring, if I can get to it. So mark your calendar for July 10th. Lunch circuit is typically second Wednesday of the month, 11:30 to 1 here at the circuit. Two of those entrepreneurs are here today, and I'm super excited about it. And so they are the three sisters. And so this is Miss Margaret Sari and Mary Westerfeld. And Miss Carolyn Jones is out of the country right now, or out of the state? Out of town. Feels like out of the country. Well, these three sisters started this gifts and home accents store that's been going for 17 years now in Hickory Flat. They live in Hickory Flat, they work in Hickory Flat. There's a lot of history here, the success that they've had, but they weren't always entrepreneurs, right? So I think their story is fascinating, and we've never had three sisters, so I think it'll be fun and exciting. They have a lot of really good energy. The lovely lady here in the white on the left is our very own Molly Mercer's mom. So we're excited that she's here, and she's been very supportive of everything that we've done. So would you guys mark your calendars, grab a ticket for that. I think it's going to be a fun gathering and story. And thank you all again for being here. That means a lot to us. So thank you.